The United States has been hit by yet another wave of a drug epidemic, the fourth one already. Thousands of people are falling victim to fentanyl overdoses, a synthetic opioid that is 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times more powerful than morphine. In terms of the number of fatal outcomes, fentanyl poisoning has already surpassed car accidents, and in 2022, Americans were dying from it every 7 minutes. How did the US get hooked on this dangerous drug? And why are its victims increasingly teenagers and small children? In this report, the opioid epidemic in the US has lasted for 3 decades. Millions of Americans became addicted after doctors prescribed them opioid painkillers following serious fractures and injuries. Frequent use of these drugs caused severe addiction. Patients suffered from hellish pain and couldn't function properly until they took another pill, Vicodin, OxyContin, or Percocet. In 2012, the trend of prescribing opioids peaked. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, there were 80 opioid prescriptions written by doctors for every 100 people in the country. When doctors stopped prescribing these medications, patients who were already addicted began seeking the pills on the black market and often switched to other opiates, including synthetic ones. The share of fentanyl began rising rapidly in the 2010s, and so did the number of fatal overdoses. On April 21, 2016, rock and roll icon Prince died from an accidental fentanyl overdose. In 2021, the number of fatal overdoses in the United States exceeded 100,000 people for the first time. The lion's share, 75%, was linked to synthetic opioids, including fentanyl. Poisoning with this substance became the leading cause of death among Americans aged 18 to 45. The unprecedented number of such cases also led to a drop in U.S. life expectancy, for the first time since World War II. In December 2022, this indicator fell to a 20-year low of 76 years, and the death rate among young Americans aged 15 to 24 became twice as high as that of their peers in France, Germany, Japan, and other developed countries. Fentanyl itself is not a banned substance. In the US, it's prescribed to patients suffering from severe chronic pain or recovering from major surgeries. The unprecedented number of deaths comes from fentanyl that is produced in makeshift labs and smuggled into the US illegally in the form of powder, nasal spray, and increasingly as pills designed to resemble legitimate medications, according to the US Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. This synthetic opioid is produced in underground laboratories in India, Mexico, and China, and the latter is considered by U.S. authorities to be the main source of the dangerous substance. At the 2018 G20 summit, Chinese leader Xi Jinping signed an agreement with the U.S. promising to bring fentanyl production and circulation under control. The next year, he banned the manufacturing and sale of fentanyl in China. However, Chinese labs found a loophole and began shipping new fentanyl analogs not yet outlawed, as well as precursors, chemical ingredients that drug cartels in the US, Mexico, and Canada use to produce the opioid themselves. According to an NPR investigation, Chinese suppliers often disguise themselves as complex networks of legal entities registered in remote towns in rural China. In such areas, law enforcement oversight is often weaker than in large cities like Beijing and Shanghai. Evading inspection, they package thousands of doses into small shipments, often hidden in other goods. Experts note that fentanyl trafficking is mainly carried out by small chemical and pharmaceutical firms, not large organized crime triads. Operating in a gray zone, Chinese suppliers even advertise fentanyl precursors on Facebook. One of them, who spoke with NPR, had a page with dozens of positive reviews from buyers. In June 2023, the U.S. Department of Justice filed criminal charges against 4 Chinese companies involved in supplying chemicals used to produce the drug. During arrests and searches, American officers seized over 200 kilograms of fentanyl precursors, enough to manufacture 25 million dangerous doses, the department emphasized. Naturally, the issue gained a political dimension. A number of U.S. politicians blame Chinese authorities for failing to stop the supply of components for the dangerous substance, or even accuse them of deliberately fueling the drug epidemic in the U.S. According to American experts, Beijing has lost interest in cooperating with Washington in this area amid worsening bilateral relations. Moreover, China may be using its anti-narcotics efforts, or lack thereof, as leverage against the United States. Critics of U.S. President Joe Biden also link the fentanyl epidemic to the migration crisis at the southern U.S. border, which reignited after pandemic-related restrictions were lifted. In 2022, more than 2 million migrants attempted to cross into the U.S. illegally, and in 2023, that number rose to over 2.5 million. The extraordinary potency of the drug, dozens of times stronger than morphine and heroin, makes it extremely compact. Just 2 milligrams of fentanyl can cause death, and a full kilogram, which easily fits into a backpack or waist pouch, contains 500,000 doses. Republicans blame migrants for the drug crisis, believing they bring dangerous narcotics into the country. However, according to the Cato Institute, most fentanyl is smuggled across the southern border by U.S. citizens, and 90% of it is seized at official checkpoints, not during illegal crossings through the desert. Still, even indirect effects of the migrant crisis cannot be ruled out. Border agents are overwhelmed by the constant influx of asylum seekers and often overlook U.S.-based smugglers due to a lack of time and resources. More and more often, fentanyl poisonings occur in combination with other drugs. Typically, this dangerous opioid is mixed with stimulants, such as cocaine or methamphetamine. In 2010, such drug cocktails accounted for only 0.5% of fentanyl-related overdose deaths. But by 2021, the share rose to nearly a third, or 34,000 fatal cases. Experts believe this is because fentanyl can now be found in nearly every street drug. Dealers intentionally mix cheap synthetic opioids into other substances to boost effects and profits without warning buyers of the dangerous additives. Many fatal outcomes result from improper mixing of drugs, where the concentration of fentanyl exceeds life-threatening levels. In 42% of confiscated pills, authorities found at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl, a lethal dose. In some cases, levels reached 5 milligrams. What especially worries American authorities is that more and more teenagers are falling victim. From 2019 to 2021, the number of youth overdose deaths tripled. In just 3 years, fentanyl killed 1,800 American teens, and in California, it became the cause of 1 in 5 deaths among minors. Usually, the deceased came from well-off families and had no history of addiction. They simply bought what they thought was harmless Adderall, Valium, Percocet, or MDMA via social media for a party. But increasingly, they were sold fake pills containing lethal doses of fentanyl. Across the country, local governments are adopting laws named after deceased teens to raise awareness among middle and high school students about the dangers of fentanyl. School administrators in several states now regularly send messages asking students to anonymously hand in any pills acquired on the street or through social media, promising not to ask questions or report them to the authorities. Even toddlers are becoming victims, often due to their own parents' negligence. Adults using fentanyl leave the drug within reach, and children, some under the age of 2, accidentally inhale or swallow the powder. Even the smallest dose of this potent opioid is enough to kill them. In recent months, U.S. law enforcement has begun widely charging such parents with drug-induced homicide. In states where that statute doesn't exist, such as California, prosecutors are using DUI laws instead to pursue criminal charges. These actions have split American society. Some support the harsh approach and even repurposing unrelated charges, arguing that, like drunk drivers, addicted parents understand the risks of leaving fentanyl accessible to their kids. Opponents of these punitive measures argue that such parents are victims themselves and need help, not punishment. Who is right will be determined in courts across the country, where dozens of such cases are being heard. American experts say they can't recall any other drug that has caused so much destruction and so many deaths. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.